Welcome back. To be fair, episode 13. Namaste, everyone. Welcome back. We are at a different studio today.
It's changing it up. Like
yeah,
you said.
we are. Got a nice painting of God knows what. Amay, Sanket. How you been, man?
Yeah, been good. You know, just plugging away. How about you?
Yeah, same, man. This is the place I've moved to.
Yeah, it's nice, man.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
It's
I
nice
like
if
it.
you guys could see the outside.
Yeah, it's lovely, but
yeah.
I don't want our 9 subscribers to know
Oh, no,
where we
yeah.
are. 9, by the way.
No, it's gone up.
We're 1 away. Thank you to whoever you are who lives right there. Now today we didn't really have a topic planned like usual, but then a video came up online from Neil Kalatka, another maybe the only Indian Australian YouTube creator there is.
I guess the most well-known.
Recognizable.
Yeah.
He made a video or a little clip, part of his podcast. I can link that if you guys want. Called Woke Indians. And I
Woke
thought, oh, it's
Indians.
perfect.
Mm.
This man's like got our topic
For
to
sure.
a T.
Well, I was into.
What is it?
It came up in my subscription. So, I mean,
Yes.
before we start, I want to say
Okay.
I'm subscribed. I do watch his videos,
Same.
but I don't watch them religiously to the extent where I know what he's actually posting and doing. But
Same bro.
that video came out, Woke Indians. I'm like, I feel like I can relate to that
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
Clicked it. And I think he brought up a lot of interesting points.
Mm-hmm.
Some I agree with. Some I think, oh, okay, let's talk. And some I'm like, feel like we need to...
Yeah, and I think I'm the same with you. I'm just not sure they're gonna be the same. things
Yeah,
that agree
yeah,
as
yeah,
us.
100%.
That's why I think that's gonna be a good topic. You did have some quotes from the video.
Yeah, but I don't know. So where would you want to start though? You just want to
Yeah.
start with the quote? Just like jump straight in? Or...
I think it's easier to start from that video and we'll
Yeah,
jump out.
sure. Well,
So,
I guess it was a very short video, wasn't it? So it was what we're responding to, I guess,
Yeah.
talking about is going to be, again, a very small thing. But
yeah.
I guess overall, what was, I guess, how would you describe or summarize that video?
Oh, you put it back on me. Nice.
Yeah.
I guess I was talking about two sides of the Australian Indian diaspora, the one that we have talked about before, of what is like what Indian Australians feel like.
Yeah. Well,
what
I guess
can they talk about?
he kind of started that whole thing by saying, like, there's a hypocrisy
Yeah.
in that community where
Yeah.
he doesn't understand it, which I guess the video said, you know, woke Indians don't make sense. I'm not gonna lie, there was a certain parts of the video where I felt I was being personally attacked.
Yeah, and that's why I thought it'd be such a good topic because I was like, does this guy know you?
I'm like,
Sick as
is
fuck,
he?
man.
No one watches our videos, but is he the one of
Yeah.
the 35 that?
Maybe he's that. You see, there's a few subscribers there that they're private, so I don't actually know.
Neil,
if
come on,
they're-
man.
Yeah, thank you so much for.
At least tag us.
Why
Come on.
would he subscribe on it? Maybe he has a private channel where he does his own like what he actually wants to watch.
He has to
So
do the
his
market
algorithm-
research, figure out what's out there. What do I talk
I'm
about?
sure he does his own.
So, anyway,
Nuts. I actually went to see him live once, so
Yeah.
it's kind of mental that we're talking about him again.
yeah, for sure.
But no, I've always liked him.
I've liked
I've
him as
actually,
well.
and then I went off for a bit.
Mm.
And now because now I'm not saying he's like more right wing now, but I feel like a lot of his content now I've been starting to get more into.
Yeah, right.
A lot of this stuff where it's just challenging. Part of the videos where he just like gets a Muslim person in the room and then makes Muslim jokes to their face.
Oh yeah, that series. I like that.
Love
Yeah,
that
yeah.
series. And it's not just that; it's like a range of
Yeah.
touchy subjects.
I like his like more recent like monologue videos as well, where he just kind
Yeah.
of puts out his thoughts, which are obviously well rehearsed and eloquent, and it kind of has a nice little thesis. And I'm like, yeah,
Just like our
interesting.
videos,
Yeah.
well rehearsed, eloquent.
And obviously he has a podcast with Friendly
Geordie.
Geordies,
Yeah.
and so like I am a big fan of Friendly Geordie. He's someone I actually do watch.
I'm glad he's okay
pretty
now.
much every video.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't watch much of him at all.
Not like his pods and stuff, but like his videos, I do appreciate.
Yeah. Right.
I think we definitely need, you know, someone that's in that younger demographic that is a comedian and funny,
Calling out music.
but also is a bit left. Because I
Yeah.
think there's that beard dude who kind of says similar stuff. But
Isaac.
he's, you know, a bit more right and kind of, you know,
They did
not
a
as
podcast.
eloquent.
All
and,
three
you
of
know,
them 2 days ago.
Really?
Yeah, it popped up on my thing.
Yeah, right.
After the thing, I want to check that out. Isaac Butterfield.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, he's very
Yeah.
I find him quite funny. Because there's some points where I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
you're really
right.
going hard.
Well, I can't say, that's the thing, I don't watch his stuff or Neil's stuff
Okay.
religiously to
Yeah.
have an opinion, really.
Okay.
But from the stuff I have seen, I can't say I'm a huge fan.
No, I wouldn't think you would be.
Yeah.
You seem like you'll be the other side.
Yeah, I'm a bit more, friendly Geordies
But
vibe.
we can do one on him later. That'll be great.
Yeah. But so back to the video.
The video.
Yeah, so
Work
he
Indians.
touched on a few things, and I think, what stood out to me at least, and I guess if you have other points you want to talk about, we can go. But what stood out to me was him first talking about, how it's kind of critique without substance in that, there's a bit of hypocrisy in that. But also what really stood out to me was his kind of discussion of internalized racism and, they are the remarks of this is what he's doing and he
Yeah.
doesn't agree with it, X, Y, Z. So that's something that stuck with me, and I thought that could be a nice little segue to both expand on that and his kind of take on woke Indians and what's funny in that diaspora, but also just more about internalized racism and because I think if I'm just going to take it there is the early videos that we talked about when I was talking about our experiences growing up and me stopping cricket or whatever.
Yeah.
That I think is a clear example of internalized racism, where I think it's not this conscious thing, but it's because the dominant sect of society, you subconsciously start to believe it it doesn't have to be like, I think they're lesser than me, but it's, I think this white norm is what we should strive for, and this is
It's
how I should
normalized.
live. Yeah, and so I
Yeah.
think even in that is internalized racism. And I think that was not as nuanced in his take, which he might have been more explanatory in the bigger podcast.
Yeah,
but,
it was a 2 minute.
it's
Yeah.
and that's where I kind of disagreed with him in terms of what he was saying about the stereotypes and the power dynamics of his viewers being white and his all of that, and I guess where he sits. And that was a quote you were talking about, what I had in my phone, where he says, I'm 80% westernized or Australian and 20% Indian, culturally at least. And so, what's Australian? We talked about that. What is Australian?
This is the thing. Like you said,
Like,
a
what does
lot
that
of
mean?
points in there where I'm like, some of the points might have different views, but when he said that 80-20%, that was really interesting because I felt like, I was gonna ask you like what percentage you feel, but I always felt earlier that I'm 100 Australian and 0 Indian because I was in high school trying to go into that, like you said,
Yeah,
that
100%.
thing where everyone's trying to be normal. Whereas nowadays, I think if you're in high school, you mentioned, it's much easier to be towards your culture.
Yeah,
if
for
anything,
sure.
it's encouraged more. Maybe a bit too much. We'll get onto that later. So now I'm
So
feeling
back in the day, you were 100, 0.
I felt like I was.
Yeah,
Or
now-
maybe it's a bit harsh. Maybe 10, 90,
Yeah,
10.
yeah, yeah. But I get what you're
Because
saying.
you're still
yeah. yeah.
culturally, you're still.
Mm.
But I stopped going to stop doing all the the braki, the raki with Thai. I took that off the day afterwards.
Yeah.
Whereas now I keep them on and I don't really keep them on for 3-4 months. And that's a little thing.
But
But it's
yeah.
It is.
Sure,
It's
for
a
sure.
mindset change of why was I embarrassed about this? What some people make fun of it just because I didn't know.
Well,
And now I'm
exactly.
if it's there, it's not a big
Exactly.
deal. But if someone asks, I'm like, oh, this is what it's for. And
Exactly.
obviously, I think society's been more accepting now than maybe your high school's a bit hard to get it. But now I'd say 70-30 Australian,
Okay.
maybe a bit
For sure.
65. But what about you? Do you have that in your head where you're like,
Well,
I'm this?
No, I did, and that's what I'm saying. So I think exactly like you, it's been a bit more. I think I was earlier on more maybe 50-50, maybe even more Indian in my head. Whenever there's an Australia-India game, I'm always India.
Yeah,
Even as a
yeah.
younger, goes Indian. But then I think
That's true.
growing up and then kind of realizing the subtleties of society and the racism, I kind of tried to fit into the more white norm Australian. And I think there was definitely a point where I'd be like, I'm 100%, I'm just Australian, I'm
Yeah.
Australian. But I'm saying even now, I can't answer that because I think, like we said, episode 1 or whatever it was, I'm in the process of decolonizing myself. And I don't think
that's right.
that percentage, Australian, don't believe there is an Australian. I think even saying that kind of highlights an internalized racism where you're highlighting, exemplifying that the white ideal or the Western ideal is norm or is Australian, and we're then not accepting of Indigenous culture, but also what actually does Australian mean. I think Australian means a concoction, a mix of all these different things, and I don't think there's a Indian versus Australian. So I think in saying that, hot take, I don't know, you tell me what you think about that, but I think, that in itself, I think, kind of highlights that internalized racism is a thing, but it's not this negative, conscious thing that you're doing and you're a racist.
That's the whole point of internalized.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's a bias. It's a thing that just happens even in language, which is my first point, hot take number 1. Neil, I know you're watching, so comment, let me know what you think. I know you understand that, What are your thoughts? Because I see you kind of nodding, but then also...
When you said the whole, what is Australian? I'm like, I think there's certain parts, like, you don't... I think the Indian... When you say... I think it's easier when you say, okay, I'm 60% Indian. What does that mean? For Neil was 80%, 20% Indian. It's like, your family would be a big part of it. Your cultural, like, the cultural holidays would probably be the biggest part of it.
Yeah.
And probably what you eat as well, what you prefer food-wise.
I accept that. Like, in terms of Indian, there's a quite...
So I think it's easier to start from there. Like, that's your Indian
Okay, fair enough.
part. Maybe build some more things in there.
Yeah.
Then the Australian part's probably the other stuff.
So the
the freedom...
Vegemite...
No.
Beers on the weekend.
Well, that's the thing. With
being
me,
a bit
it's
like
different.
Just fair dinkum, like we can make jokes,
Chill,
tough skin, like what does that mean?
Tough skin, yeah. So it's a bit more like, I think in more Australian culture, probably more than any other culture, poking fun at someone else, your friend, is like the biggest Australian culture thing I can think of. Because food obviously is a joke. But like where you just like, you rib your mates for like, you just go on and on.
Sure,
That's a very Aussie thing. British people do it well, but
British definitely,
but we really go hard, and I think that's a genuine Aussie thing. Because if I go to like an Indian, like if I meet my cousins, like our other cousins, and they're like also born here, so we can rib as well. If I try and rib with an uncle, Indian uncle, you can't make those kind of jokes.
Oh yeah, of course.
When I go to play cricket, and as I'm talking about, cricket really helps. I'm playing with 40, 50-year-old dudes, right? And I can get into them like as hard as you want.
Yeah.
And I think that those kind of people, like you said, the tough-skinned, just wanting to have fun, laid back, and then I think I know you mentioned beers as a joke, but it is kind of like because if you don't drink, you're still part of that team and everything. You can still like rib and everything, but usually the people who don't drink leave at like 8 p.m. and then and you're there a bit longer.
But see, all of
so
that.
So it is part of like that part where I'm like, oh, yeah, it's Australian.
It is Australian, but like, so you don't agree in the sense that even labeling something as Australian kind of centralizes the idea of internalized racism.
So can you...
So like me, because I think my thesis is that even describing something in the context of X% Australian highlights internalized racism because you're denoting Australian as an entity, which is kind of this westernized, monolithic white idea of, this is the Australian way, this is what it means to be Australian.
Whereas you're arguing Australia's like it's like a melting pot.
I think it's more, that's a separate episode in itself.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think.
I think the label though, even like using that language kind of makes it clear that...
But there is something there, so what would you call it? White? Is that what you'd say instead?
Well, no, I don't think there's 100% and then you can compare X and X. I think it's a...
Yeah, it's always
like
gray, isn't it?
I have like a, I don't have that many ties with my cultural heritage. Maybe that's a better way of saying it, as opposed to I'm more Australian than I'm Indian.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
That's actually a decent... Yeah, that's probably, like I said, the language. That's really well phrased.
And and the language is the basis of, we mentioned it.
Yes, with the...
in just like...
A great episode.
Yeah, it's like, it's the basis of everything, and that's where these internalized biases come from. And I don't think it's when people say, which I haven't read the commentary, but when someone's like, Neil in those videos internalized racism is showing,
Mm.
it's not to say this is a, you're horrible and you're racist. It's, it's quite clear that there's a bias that is evident, and we at least need to be aware of it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what the whole video is talking about, right? Well, I think he was obviously more talking from his point of view. Like, I think one other point he mentioned, move on to like the next, where he was like, the whole thing of stereotypes. And this is what I've thought about as well a lot. It's like, if you're from, not even Indian, we'll just say, if you're from a particular culture, and you make jokes about that culture, and you put on like an accent, whereas if someone else did it, you'd be like, oh, that's a bit interesting. But if you do it, so that's the whole point, where he does that, and then he gets two people going at him. The other people going at him like, hey, you're making this worse by allowing this rhetoric that, oh, you can do that, so then white people will be like pandering to the white ones. And we might have mentioned this in the What's Funny episode. I think you might have mentioned it, where it's like, it's not... Is it funny still if the person of culture does it, because they're just prolonging that stereotype?
It's hard. And the thing is, I think Neil's a bad example because I think he's a little bit more nuanced. But I think when we were talking in that episode, it was those people that were just like,
obvious.
Had no actual substance, but they were just like, the accent itself was the joke, and
and that's racist.
Yeah, but I think
that's any accent.
I think, for example, like I said, I haven't seen what he was talking about, but when he was saying that everyone was being a specific stereotype, and I was being the Indian stereotype.
Yes.
I think there's nuances there where it's like, if that's just the context of that video, it is what it is. Like, you're making fun of it. It's a thing. But I think if that is your go-to stereotype all the time, and that is apparently funny, then I think it's a problem. But also, it's a problem, I think, when you take the context of the audience. So if there was 90% audience was people like us in the diaspora, Indians, and we obviously potentially wouldn't find it as funny. It wouldn't be as funny, and he probably wouldn't use it as much because the responses.
But exactly.
If 90%, which I imagine are white people, and they're finding it funny, sure, it's funny, but what do you actually, yeah, sure, I pick comedy at the end of the day. I just kind of do what I think is funny. But funny to who? And then what are the consequences of that comedy? It's not to say don't say that and you're not allowed to do this, but it's just to, I guess, a bit more aware of, and I think he does that. I think him personally, I think he's a bit more nuanced.
He does do it very well.
And he also, that's not all his content. He has videos where he's just being
an
Australian.
Knows.
Yeah,
he knows
I think
exactly what.
So maybe
he's very smart. But the point there is valid, because other people will probably do it as well, right? Like you mentioned. But it's a tricky one, because then I get to the whole thing of like, well, then what are you gonna like let people say in the first place? And then, like, are you too busy like infighting and being like, you're brown, you can't say this, and the other brown person's like, no, I can say this because people find it funny, and then the other browns are like, well, who's finding it funny? It's not me. Well, then you can just say, well, don't fucking watch.
Well, I think.
But then they have like, well, you're misrepresenting my
Of course,
thing.
like, it's not to say don't do it. Like, it's it's if that's your content, that's what you do, and that's what you find funny, that's what your audience likes.
But I think the issue was like,
do it. But I think it's acknowledging it being, if there is criticism saying that this is internalized racism and it's an issue in terms of the persisting effects it has, that's valid. It's not to say you guys are lefty crazy fairies. It's to say, no, look, that's valid, but it's still funny for my audience, it's funny for me, and that's what I'm going to do. Which, if that's your case, that's fair enough.
That's
Good on
the thing.
You.
It's like with that kind of comedy, it is risky. So I know it's a different topic, but it is hard to like get that balance of, I'm going to try and portray my stereotype, because that's the thing. You, in a way, you're kind of honoring it because you know it's happened to you. You're stereotyping it because you know it's so prevalent, like it's bad, that it's going to be funny. You know what I mean? I don't know if I said that correctly.
Kinda. I mean, yeah, kinda. But for example, me...
But the truth is funny.
If we were going to do a thing, and we were going to do stereotypes like a comedy thing...
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know any migrant Indians, brown people who currently work in Uber or 7-Eleven, and their lived experience to then be like, this is my people and I can speak on them because I'm the same background. But, if it was more of like maybe IT or, that, like, I mean, I actually can relate to that, fair enough. But just because they're brown and they work in 7-Eleven, I have no understanding of their experience or what.
No.
You know, it's more of like
And they're
a.
usually students, and like it's a very different
I don't know.
lifestyle from what we have, right?
I don't know.
Because we're not fully Indian. If we go back into that one,
Mm.
because they've just come.
But I understand. I get, because I think with you, there's a special place in your heart for like comedy and being able to
and
just, you know.
regulating.
Yeah,
comedy as
yeah.
well.
And so I can understand for sure.
But I understand, like, if I would laugh at like a Chinese stereotype, let's say,
Mm.
to piss off someone else, then if I see a brown stereotype, would I laugh? And the answer is, I have laughed at, not like, for example, Neil, like other people who've done brown stereotypes who are brown themselves. If they do it well, it is funny.
Oh, of course.
Because it can be done in a way that the audience knows, oh, he's poking fun because he knows this is very true. Like, we all kind of, oh, everyone's a bit racist. It's kind But there's other ones where I haven't laughed because I'm like, and I think we might have mentioned this, if you don't get where it's coming from, you're just like, haha, the accent's so funny, I'm just going to do the accent.
Yeah.
Then I don't laugh because I'm like, oh, this is just poking fun.
Yeah.
This is like, I don't know anyone. Probably are people who do it, right? They just don't know the background.
Well, and it's hard, but I think
Yeah.
it's again, the USB of To Be Fair is to just talk about things we're not necessarily qualified about. And
Yeah,
just
but
have more questions and not really answering anything.
But I was gonna say, we've kind of gone on the comedy route. The topic was like the woke Indian kind of thing. Like, would you? I don't know. Would you call yourself a woke Indian? What does that even mean?
I don't like the term woke. What is woke?
I
think woke is
from the video. I thought it was like someone who trying to like you said, decolonize.
Yeah, but I think woke in these days when it's used, it's a kind of a, not, I don't want to say right wing because that's also then othering, but I think it's people that lean right. It's a way of them to kind of be like, oh, they're just woke. Oh,
yeah, dismiss them.
Yeah, like, oh, they're just, they're just trying to make everyone happy, lefty, and so...
Usually I associate, if I had work, I would be lefty.
Exactly, woke.
I would
it's just like,
that.
like woke who doesn't have life experience, but they're just in academia, and like, they don't, it's like that lefty, which...
Studied hard at school.
Which, I get, but I think maybe progressive is a term that I think is more...
Yeah, well, that's the thing you mentioned with language. People doing videos with having the word progressive Indian, it doesn't work. But if you put woke Indian, you get... People know automatically.
Well, because woke is more of a derogatory connotation, you know what I mean? Like,
it's not just stereotypes.
Progressive is more just objective. This is,
Obviously, there'll be love to be a world where you can have that proper language. And with the other one you mentioned as well, with... during the video, what did you mention? When it started, like, you're talking about something, I'm like, oh, you phrased it really well. Oh, the Indian-Australian thing.
Yeah, sure.
You were like...
like my cultural heritage ties or whatever,
Yes, that thing, instead of being, hey, I'm 30% Australian.
Of course. But I think things like that, and it's not to say because you're a comedian, and you're a public figure, you have a extra responsibility, and that's, that's to put too much on them.
I don't believe that.
No, that's to put too much on them, but I just think when people point these things out, it's not like, oh, they're the fun police. It's like, actually, like, what is Australia? Like, what is...
Yeah, it's a good topic.
Jan 26 just passed, and...
I mean, that's a whole other fucking...
But that's what like, we're just...
Is that Australia? Yeah, that's...
But,
the fact that day is celebrated. Anyway.
But alas...
Yeah.
I feel like, was there anything else in particular from that video that...
well, did you have your phone? You had some...
Well, I don't know.
You had some... Oh, sorry.
No, the only thing it has with the Australian thing, and then internalized racism was the thing that I guess I
and yet
highlighted.
again, I have forgotten most of what we said in this video, and if
As
we
always.
actually talked about woke Indian, and I think we have.
Well, I guess to answer your question, do I consider myself a woke Indian?
Yes. See, I would say, coming from the outside of this video, I was like, you're gonna hate this Neil video more than me. Because, like you said, I feel like he was attacking you.
Yeah. Which...
Not that he was.
No, but yeah, which and if you were Neil, like tag us at least.
Or
like,
people yeah, sure you
all
know.
views are good views.
Dude, sure he knows us. Don't need him, man. We got 9.
Yeah,
Yeah.
irrespective of the connotations, I think I would wear that hat to say, yes, I am woke.
Yes, and I would have put that hat on you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Because I just think...
You can just tell from watching every episode.
It's progressive.
It's obvious.
It's
progressive.
The the mindset of looking forward,
Yeah.
which probably isn't good. Like I think we should just look now and focus what's happening.
Of
But I think
course.
that forward-looking view of how is this going to impact in 5 years and 10 years, and what sort of place do we want to be in? And I
Exactly.
think that.
And I think you've taught me a lot from that perspective.
Oh, stop it!
No, because
Stop
no, I'm
it.
serious. Because like at the start, I wouldn't give a shit about all that kind of stuff. Like, what's funny is funny. Funny is funny. I might have made those stereotype jokes before to white people when I was in school as well. Because like I said, at that point I was trying to be 100%
Yeah.
Australian. So I'll be like, oh yeah, curry, so smelly, right? And be like, oh my god, it's hilarious. He's saying it. Whereas now, if I would make that joke, it would be different.
That being said, to end it off in a,
You know what I mean?
we're just gonna like ruin this entire video, but like, you know, some in the opposite light, I think some stereotypes are true, and maybe they're
That's why it's funny.
some sort of commentary. No, but in how it's said. But for example, when he said like curry stink, like, but I'm like, white people stink as well. But you know, it definitely is a trend when you walk past sometimes brown people that
yeah,
they
because it
definitely-
dal is tadka.
no, but I mean like body odor like scent is what I'm
yeah,
saying. Like,
I'm very
it's-
conscious of it,
It's definitely something that.
and I have been told by you, certain someone, that I need to wear more, even though I wear a shit ton.
Oh right.
So it's just like, yeah.
And it might be
maybe
a bit
it is.
genetic and stuff. So it's
Yeah,
hard, again,
exactly.
hard to say,
It
but
could be genetic. It's not.
I don't know. It's a.
Yeah, it's a good point. But I was
There's-
just, before I was praising you and you stopped for some reason.
I don't know, but I
I was
just,
gonna say, you've taught me a lot from like that perspective of thinking about what the ramifications could be for like doing something. Because I would never do that. For me, it was just like, I want to be the funniest. Like, I'll say it because it comes to my head, and a lot of people don't say what comes to their head, and I just do. Which I guess is good and bad.
I think.
But then
it's-
listening
yeah.
to what you were saying, like, you know, we need to actually like storm the Capitol, take back the monuments. And I'm like, at the start, if I wasn't in the headspace, I would have been like, what the hell is he talking about? Because like with any video, like even with Neil's, there's too many videos, you're not going to get a full
Oh, yeah,
representation
yeah.
of something. That's why I like doing this. We get a whole 20, 30-minute discussion. You get majority of what we're trying to say. So I've been thinking more now, like, of what's going to happen in 5, 10 years, like with kids, you know, if kids happen,
Well, right.
how
like,
are they going to, like, should I have to, like, not censor myself, but explain to them that, hey, you know, like, you're laughing at the drunk Irish stereotype. It's funny, but then what if someone says something about to you or your heritage and something? So, like, just to keep them
It's-
aware.
Yeah, I think, and it's hard
It's a
because it's
lot,
like
yeah.
it's hard because I mean like day to day it's hard to actually then
Yeah, how do you
like
live?
living it like
How do
it's
you
you know
live?
it's
Yeah.
more I think it is more just after the fact just being like you know a bit more
It is.
aware of you know
I think that's all it is. It's awareness. If the more and like knowledge is power, right? The more you know, the more nuanced you'd be. Like with Neil, we have mentioned a few times. He does get this sort of stuff.
oh for sure
He's done a lot of videos where you're like, oh wow, he's got really.
and I'm
into-
sure in the actual long video podcast he probably
Yeah.
does preface it with you know,
Exactly.
like I'm sure that's
Yeah.
the case but
And he's probably also does not give a shit about two other people
and you know
talking
we're getting
So-
into the YouTube game we know what
Yes.
how clickbaits
Getting
work
absolute-
and what
let's
you
get
know
the thumbnail in. That's why
Oh,
we move
yeah.
forward as well. Oh, I ruined that one. I'll check another one. It doesn't matter because we put one that you make, right?
yeah
Yeah,
I mean, like I can handle.
but, yeah.
My laptop is so bad now. Like
Man,
I've handled it to you now.
I was
This
doing
is
really well. I'm really proud of it.
anyway. So, is there a last ending thought on today?
There's no. I just want to say thanks to like.
Oh, you're
for, like,
welcome.
Awakening my eyes.
Thanks for kind of making me do this as well. I feel like
Yeah,
I'm on
it's
the
good.
other spectrum. I would never put myself in front of a camera and actually put it out in the world.
Yeah.
And you've helped me being like, hey,
No, it's good.
it
And
doesn't
it's
matter.
good
And
to
it's
show
just
that we don't agree with some things. It's not a big deal. Just talk it out. Just talk it out. We say it every episode. But
to be fair, we're just having a conversation, and
that's it.
that's all it is.
I think that's it, guys.
Much better episode than last episode. So
Do you want to tell them what happened last episode?
what happened last episode? Like nothing happened
We
last
did
episode.
2
Don't
takes,
watch
remember?
last episode. It's fine.
Don't watch it. But
We'll
we're
see
gonna,
you in
I'm
the
gonna
next
keep it
episode,
on.
though.
We will.
That's what we'll do.
Which will be on something we decide probably an hour before, like we usually do. See you guys.